Hey, I'm back at the window. Many reasons. Y'all know I freak out again. They, attacked me because I just wrote hashtag to this hospital and it showed up in their YouTube search engine saying thank you for giving me back my privileges. And they threatened to take my electronics away and cancel my privileges again the day after I get them back for saying that on their search engine, not their official anything, right? Just like a search engine on YouTube, basically. Like, that's how it ended up. And, well, we all know what we think about that, so whatever with that, but I actually, since I attempted suicide over it, they're just gonna have to deal with me that way, right? Well, yeah, they don't care about that, but they'll care about saying thank you for giving me my privileges back, but a suicide attempt, not anything, right? So let's talk about burning at the stake. Because the Inquisitors, now if we turn back time, and we're all the same, we can ask for it by name, babble, babble, bitch, whatever. Who do you think the Inquisitors were? And who do you think the people burning at the stake were? It's a long tradition of what we can assume, right? I mean, let's look at the building. Now, I don't know, I want to see the building. If you want me to see me pull this around, there's the building. And there's a Claremont building. Oh, no cars there now. But before there were. Now it's a little strange because there shouldn't be. That's an old, detention gone is gutted out and none doing anything. Oh, why was there like 50 cars there, right? At any rate, so about burning at the stake, I wanted to say because a little rage, yeah, but when you're confronted by monsters, okay, here I go. Religion is a Latin word. So all the Islamic immigrants saying freedom of religion, they're using English words, predated English words, basically, to call Islam a religion or to call any belief system a religion. It is Roman because religion is a Rome Latin word. Religare. It means, well, in Islam it means to submit the will, and in Christianity it means to thwart from progress. So basically, the southern hemisphere to submit the will, and the northern hemisphere to thwart from progress is and was a pronostic style of mind control, similar in the media sense to create conformity in our generation and pandemonium in theirs, with the exception of the pain versus pleasure scale, right? They created the worst known evil in our consciousness, in our universe, as we know, with reference to the statistics of physical abuse and the mental status of people who could not defend themselves because of their illiteracy or exclusion of the public to be led in civil directions to speak up or even of knowing it was wrong. And if anyone says NCR for that, they're fucked up in the head, right? Because that's what it is nowadays if you do something like that, right? Christianity through medieval Europe. Christianity through medieval Europe, if you want to denote the New Testament bullshit and say that's peaceful, it's not based on it, right? No. So forced every woman into a silence. They could not talk or they would get killed. Until it came time to execute them, that is. Horrified, crying and screaming in fear for their Jesus to save them. In the hands of the Inquisitors, then tied to a stake and burned to a crisp. If a woman onlooker screamed, "Burn witch," she was their next victim. A woman having a voice was disgusting, period. Nah, my phone's dying. I might not be able to say this all. The word witch had a different meaning at the time of the Inquisition, unlike today. In the 16th century, it was a cameo to call out old women and drunken men who did not know it was a liquid causing the elation. We think it's an occult title today, but for us it is, but it actually It's just a term then to refer to the aging women who were unlucky to be sentenced to horrible sentences, punishment, whatever, by the church. Any exertion of the will or that shot of absinthe would get you first corporal punishment, then far beyond the known expensive pain you were to receive at the height of Christendom's evil. In the 20th and 21st century, the priests and ministers just organized a new plot, using our satanic gizmo and bingo ceremonies, telling people how to be enticed to keep believing lies and rubbish. It is merely organized differently in thieving televised preachers telling tales of an old belief system that has nothing to do with anything they are doing. Stupidity is a painful thing, then. And now we all sing along to Madonna, who is not the Virgin Marian. Or and Marian is not Mary Magdalene. I'll give you that tip. The church kept their people in a nascent style of learning and used their own ignorance as a weapon against them. Just imagine the horror of being raped and tortured, to confess or not, then tied to a tree and burned in front of your family, hollering you to be maimed, all the while screaming, "Jesus, save us! We are not witches!" But was it the one being burned that was a witch? Where was your God then? He was nowhere. Debbie added that little thing in there, and she edited this for me. This is part of my manuscript under the devil. They cried, "Jesus, save us." Church, they were indoctrinated. They were a product of this religious supremacy, and it was not good no matter what was being arrogated about everything. The church proselytization had conditioning hold of this, even though they were being murdered from it. They were indoctrinated and educated so poorly that I could save anything to save their own lives. "Jesus, save us," they cried. Oh, great, me making horrible deaths on our soil, not every bit of this taste of pain spoken. So what was sin? What was truly evil? Surely no one accused and put to their death. It could only be these beliefs in God then doing it. The perverted fooled everyone. People accused. Thick, choking smog of Christian fire, which was perverted with the folly words of fearmonger, the devil and demons and their god of disgust, and the so-called loving standards of thinking, comprehend mind-boggling concept to think to standards of the commandeering. Sorry, it's hard to read this in the lines. Yeah, my eyes. Of their commandeering, right? Yeah, their commandeering. It's disgust, dissent. Yahweh, peaceful beliefs it represented, so-called desiring, right? Yahweh himself would have never condoned or forgiven men of him, but that were preaching about him, right? So that's terrible sin of the men of God then. Yahweh was crucified too, remember that. Was he crucified though, or was he the very first person burned at the stake? And he lasted 3 days. A male at first, to seem like a fair trial was occurring too, perchance. Once he realized that church was a club for murder, praise can no longer be sung to God, but to people that have the balls to call it out and risk their lives doing it. A man named John Milton was the first success story at making public the idea that religious doctrine was untrue. And he also cut he cut the hag down from the tree and said, "She is not a witch, she is a woman." There were a few who got away with that, right? Even though John Milton and others like him were not sticking up for Satanism in the sense we are today on social media and the media, right? Pleasure versus pain, right? Yeah. They were unctuously standing up for the vulgar philosophies uttered by the so-called holy good church and their fellowship of flames. They were standing up for truthful peace, tolerance, and love. This is Satan. Represents that if Satan's their enemy, in other words, if we want to say that nowadays. Though they knew those women were not witches and drunk people were eccentric, right? They knew. Despite the consequences of the same fate, figures during medieval time, Christendom, artists, writers, alchemists, thinkers, poets, philosophers, John Dee and Edward Kelly, They got away with it. And I hope for many intelligent people on earth today, the hypocrisy of the church was insane and the abuse intolerable. Right? My abuse here, I've been educated on what abuse is, right? I've been through more abuse, and I'm probably the most abused little girl in North America that's not like a commodity dead, right? And made it look like it's not, right? Yeah, it's crazy how they did that. Yeah, brutalization on these people here, they tricked the damn, my parents trick, me and my mother, trick a hospital to keep me my whole life. Okay, well, whatever about that, Will. The protest was in the same way Jesus stood against the political and religious injustices in Nazarene. He stood as trophy of the Messiah, a son of God, as a political metaphor, I think. It should be a metaphor to describe the way Marian and her sisters and mother were subjugated, and he wants to emancipate this and save the woman's life from ritual stoning because they gave birth or something. What in the devil's name is so good about this religion to you people on this planet? This is not demonstrating good and evil with spiders and flies. They're using us. Think for yourself. Be intelligent. Use a critical mind when analyzing what's going on in the world. If you think that the 7 deadly sins, gluttony, pride, sloth, that's what Jesus supposedly saved you from, not anything else.